Good evening, good night, good morning. It's 1 o'clock in the morning Eastern time. So good morning to everyone. A happy Saturday morning here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. So after a long day of car shopping with my daughter and a healthy little power nap on the couch, which I hate to take, but I just did it. I don't know that it was much of a power nap, maybe a 25-minute nap. Here I am to talk college football. This was not intentional, so I apologize for the late notification. This was not intentional, but I was building the business. I was working on my business here. I was working on a number of sponsorship opportunities and other things that hopefully will come through that have taken some time, that took me away from some content creating today. So this being a Friday, this would be the first time in forever that I did not create any content today. But of course, we did so much over the last several days that it spreads on out through Friday and Saturday. And of course, the spring games are coming up. More of them on April 20th. That is right now, April 20th, later today, Saturday. All right, so I'll check out the live chat. And I took into account I believe this is based on the ESPN Power Index. The ESPN College Football Power Index, their college football playoff predictor. Much of this information and the results of their preseason playoff predictor caught my eye. Therefore, I thought I would raise it. And thus the title of the live stream tonight, College Football Playoff Contenders and Pretenders. So in the live chat, certainly let me know who you believe are the contenders versus the pretenders. And of course, we could say that Buffalo is a pretender. We do not expect the Buffalo Bulls to contend for a national championship. So you can leave those teams alone. But are there national championship contenders, teams that we assume will contend for the national championship this year that you believe are phonies here in 2019? And on the flip side, are there any teams outside of the Alabama, Georgia, Clemson, Ohio State, Oklahoma triumvirate that you would consider to be national championship contenders? I guess we could also, by extension, include Texas, LSU, Washington, Michigan. But aside from those teams, those would be the primary teams that are considered national championship contenders, possibly Notre Dame. And yes, I will get to the college football playoff predictor here in just a second. If you are surfing YouTube late on a Friday night, Saturday morning, and you have stumbled upon us, then congratulations. You have done yourself one huge favor if you're a college football fan, because this is the voice of college football. I am the voice of college football, Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. And we provide for you the best in discussion, debate, and analysis on a daily basis, not a weekly basis. You will not see a video from me once a week or once every 3 days or even one per day. The count from January was 156 videos for the month. That's pretty consistent with every month, about 5 videos per day. Actually, I've backed off on that somewhat, because a few people had complained, too many videos, Mark. I can't keep track of them. So I missed some because they're about 7 deep when I finally make it to your YouTube channel for the day, because I was pumping out 5 and 6 and 7 videos per day, and I got some complaints. It's also probably too much content also for the YouTube algorithms that they say, whoa, slow down. Too much, more quality. Not that the videos were lacking quality, of course, but in terms of quality of viewership, that I have tried to get into a cycle of somewhere between 6 and 8 in the morning Eastern time, and then around noon, I'll release a video. Then I'll release a video about 5 p.m. And then if I'm really loaded down with content, and depending on the West Coast nature of the content, I'll sometimes release something at about 8 o'clock at night Eastern time, considering that if it's of Pac-12 variety, then it's drive time 5 o'clock roughly on the West Coast. I will get to the live chat. I'm sure that there are many tremendous comments and questions already for me. And of course, the call-in number is available at 860-325-3687. But need to remind you that while I provide for every hour about 59 minutes of hardcore college football analysis, there has to be about the 1 minute of promo time. So please listen up. We're on Amazon. So what you need to do is grab the Amazon link in the description section of any of the videos, including this one. Grab that link if you shop at Amazon. If anyone in your household shops on Amazon, feed them our link and let them know this benefits the best college football channel online. Therefore, please do your Amazon shopping using one of the links in the description section of any of the videos. Okay. Amazon, I understand they're up and coming. It's a business that's on the rise. So if you do any shopping at Amazon, that's Amazon, as in the river. Amazon. If you've never heard of it, look it up. Amazon. If you do any shopping there, use the link in the description section below. We've got a newsletter, The Voice of College Football. Yes, we have not been regularly releasing newsletters during the off season. My apologies for that. I'm trying to do about 42 different things at the same time, and I need to focus in. Now, during the regular season, from week 1 all the way through the postseason, for 15 consecutive weeks, plus the postseason through the national championship game, we delivered our newsletter, The Voice of College Football, each and every Monday consistently. So that I will vow to you that it will be released each and every Monday during the season. I would like to release on a more regular basis during the offseason. I thought I would be able to keep up the once-a-week pace during the offseason, but I've not been able to do that. But there will be additions during the offseason, and obviously as we get closer to the season in August in particular. The Voice of College Football, please send your email to mine, MarkRogersTV@gmail.com, and we'll get you that. If your family and friends, your social media acquaintances prefer the audio over the video, let them know that you're going to get more via the video than you will the audio, but we do provide the audio of most of the content here. It's hard for me to keep track and keep up with all the audio with the video, so I've got to take all the videos that I produce and strip the audio and send it to the various audio platforms, and I don't want to be sending like 5 different audio podcasts every day. That's not good, again, for the traffic. But I do post 1 per day minimum to the podcast, the audio podcast. So you can catch Mark Rogers TV if you go to iTunes, Podbean, Stitcher, Google Play, or Spotify. You will hear my lovely voice and not have to look at me. You'll hear my lovely voice there at any of the audio platforms, and you just search Mark Rogers TV. So if you know somebody that likes to consume the content on the treadmill or while they're doing chores around the house or while they're shopping or whatever the case might be, and they like the audio, point them in that direction. You're here, so I assume you like the video. The Super Chat. All right. I'm making my plea right now. You can help Mark Rogers TV, the Voice of College Football, so many different ways. You can help us so many different ways to make this bigger and better and to reach more college football fans out there. I talk about it all the time. I've got a number of fan bases here. I appreciate you Florida State fans, Miami fans, Ohio State fans, USC fans, Texas, and some other teams. If I produce a Wisconsin video, Michigan State video, Minnesota video, a Washington State video, a Pitt video, yeah, they have smaller fan bases than the teams I just mentioned, but they still have fan bases. Believe me, we could make fun of them, that Washington State actually has fans, that Minnesota has fans, but they do. I would love to reach those people as well. So that's my quest, to encompass all of college football. Power 5 first and foremost. Yes, we love the Group of 5. Yes, I watch it on Thursday and Friday night. I love the Group of 5. There's just so much analysis that can come out of this one mouth each and every week. So this is the way you can help the channel. What I just mentioned. If you do your shopping at Amazon, you grab the Amazon link. That helps build the channel. It doesn't cost you a penny. It helps build the channel. Thank you. Also, if you love what we do here at Mark Rogers TV, the Voice of College Football, like the videos. The ratio of views versus likes should be much higher than it is. I appreciate so much. Many of you jump on the live chats and you say, like the videos, and you tell everybody on the live chat, like the videos. Just help out Mark, like the videos. I don't know what the algorithm is specifically. I just know that YouTube loves likes. They like engagement. They like to not only reward those video producers like myself who get a lot of views. So if a video gets, for me, I was averaging about 1,500 to 2,000 views per video earlier this year. I don't know what the number is. All time, it's about 500 per video. So it's increased considerably. So YouTube will reward viewership if a video gets a lot of views. But if the video sucks, let's say the thumbnail's great, the title's great, so people click on the video, but the video sucks. And of course, you won't find that on my channel. But the video sucks after people get enticed by the thumbnail and the title, then YouTube's not going to, even if it gets 100,000 views, YouTube is not going to promote it because it quickly determines people click off this thing after 10 seconds. My watch time, thanks to you, thank you. My watch time is jacked up high. It's like 6 minutes per video. That's really high. People consume like an average of 40 to 50% of all my videos, meaning from the time it starts to the end, the average person makes it like 40 to 50% into the video. That's high. That's very high. Thank you. So YouTube takes into account the number of views, the length of viewing, the engagement. So that's the likes and that's the comments. That's where you come into play as well. Like the videos, comment to the videos. And I have been trying to remember when I post the videos to ask you questions. You'll see the fonts below me. They're called fonts in the TV business. You'll see Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. You'll see my guest, and they are fonted. Then you'll see over and over, because I'm driving it home, Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. What I need to do more often is if it's a Florida State video, and I should ask, what do you think Florida State's record is going to be in 2019? Those sorts of questions to spur on comments. I will do more of that if I remember when I'm doing it. All right, that's another way you can help. You can help through the super chat. I don't believe many people out there, and I sincerely mean this, when I say, and I'll get to the live chat soon, I'm sure there are a lot of comments, so I apologize. I sincerely mean this, that if you cannot spare $1 or $2, I so much appreciate that you're watching. That means more to me than anything, that you watch, that you engage in the conversation. And I know there are a lot of people out there that watch and don't do anything. There are people out there right now that watch me on a regular basis, and I have never heard of you because you have never commented. That's great. That's fine. If that's the way you want to consume it and you don't want to get into arguments and comments with people, that's fine. It does help if you would comment, and I would love to know that you're out there. And it's so funny to me, and I'll take this call, but I'm going to continue my spiel. This is why I need to set it up professionally, where I can put this person on hold, and then I can continue from there. This, of course, is Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Hey, Mark, it's DeAndre. How you doing?
Hey, DeAndre. How are you?
Good, man. Congratulations on how well you're doing on the shows.
Well, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
That's great.
So I'm saying thank you for the comment, but more than that, I'm saying thank you because it's guys like you who are making this happen. It's not me. I just get on here and talk. So thank you.
You and several others, y'all do a very good job, especially because the mainstream media, to me, only promotes certain teams. You go out your way to put some people that are not necessarily mainstream teams on there. Like, I think you got Northwestern sometimes. You even get Boston College some looks, and a couple other schools that people don't talk about, UVA. I think you got a contributor. I would actually love to do more of that.
But as we've talked about in the past, I've got to balance, what I'd like to do, which is cover everybody. I would love to be doing I took notes on the Indiana spring game last week. I'm going to do an Indiana video, and probably nobody's going to watch it, but I wanted to talk Indiana football and learn more about their team, so I watched the Indiana spring game. So I'm going to do that. But I would like to do more of that, but as you can imagine, Clemson, Ohio State, et cetera, get the views.
Yeah, Miami.
Yeah.
Alabama.
And the thing is, DeAndre, is I'm just throwing out numbers. Let's say Ohio State has 5 million fans out there that watch digital content. And let's say Indiana only has 500,000. But there's still a major school that has a significant fan base. It's nowhere compared to the teams that we're talking about, but I would still love for those people to start watching, but they just haven't found me, of course. So anyway, I'll let you talk now, DeAndre. That's the reason you called.
I just want to tell you congratulations. I caught the tail end of the show. You know what I'm doing. I'm working.
Yeah.
I'm about to get out here and do a little bit of work. But
hey, DeAndre, you don't need to answer this question, but I'll ask it anyway. And certainly, if you want your privacy, you don't need to answer this question. But I'm just curious. When you talk about work, what do you do for a living?
Well, my main job during the daytime, I work at the prison as a case manager, helping inmates. My other job, I do Uber and Lyft drives around the Fort Bragg area.
Okay.
So, yep. I was on, I'm sure everybody, if you see your face, so everybody know your business. Ain't no, I heard somebody say a long time ago, ain't no secrets in society no more. If you want to find something about somebody, they're going to find out about you.
Yeah, well,
hold it against you.
I was just curious about that because you've mentioned many times that you listen to me at work, and it sounds like you're working a heck of a lot, long hours each week. But so I was just curious. So what you did, it seems like you're doing a good thing there at the prison in particular.
Right. Yeah, smart guy. And like I said, I just on the social issues. So I work with kids for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoy what I do. I like working with the inmates, trying to help them get better in life, to become productive citizens, and start robbing and stealing from people.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for that. Thank you for that. I'm sure you've made a big impact.
Yeah, some of them don't like it, but it's all good. But I saw your show on Notre Dame.
Yes.
And why they won't join the conference. And I saw the Big Ten talk about, like back in the day, how Michigan kept Notre Dame out of the Big Ten. But I don't think I like Notre Dame being independent. Well, what I don't like, it's kind of like what y'all said, take it away from everybody else. I mean, I didn't like the fact, and I know everybody said, well, you just saying this because Alabama beat Clemson. I didn't like the fact Alabama got another shot. They lost in the regular season to Auburn, and Georgia beat Auburn in the second quarter. I wish we could do something to fix that. But I think Clemson and Notre Dame should have played for the ACC championship if they were going to have it in there. But at the same time, I do believe that Notre Dame should keep it independent. Because they're the only school that goes out there and play USC, Boston College, Stanford, and Michigan, and they just have this amazing schedule.
Yes,
it's always unbelievable when those teams are winning. That's why I like it. I like it because you get to see them. But also, when times change, you got to change with the times. And you see in the mega conferences. But my second, who will be the other team to join the ACC in Michigan? Would be Connecticut or Cincinnati.
Okay.
I think Connecticut might be it.
All right. So here's my analysis right here on the Notre Dame ACC situation. So I believe I'm a football guy, so I don't care about the academics or anything else. Not that I don't care about it, but that's not what I'm concerned with, and that's not what I deal with here. I know that the Big Ten in particular is very picky about who they bring into the conference. Of course, Notre Dame would certainly meet those standards academically, But other schools like Louisville and West Virginia were considered a football fit for the Big Ten, but they turned them down because there's a certain accreditation that you have to have, and Nebraska had to meet that to join the Big Ten. So anyway, from a football standpoint, from a historical standpoint, from the standpoint of rivalries and geography, definitely Notre Dame belongs in the Big Ten. They have a long-standing rivalry with Michigan, Michigan State, and Purdue. They played those teams every year forever, and they're sitting right in the middle of Indiana. They should be in the Big Ten. But that's not what's happened over the last several years. Of course, they've affiliated themselves with the ACC. And so about 3 to 4 off seasons ago, I produced a video in which I completely restructured the conferences the way I believe that it would work best. And I came up with 6. I added a power conference because of the likes of Boise State and Notre Dame and BYU and Houston and teams that play at a high level on a regular basis, Central Florida. I added those to the Power 5. I made 6 conferences, all of 12 teams. So no longer would we have 14 teams in that conference and 10 teams in that conference and so forth and so on. 12 teams in every conference. And I thought I did a decent job. I kicked out Syracuse, Boston College, Pitt. I kicked out all the northern teams out of the ACC. And I made a conference in the Northeast. I reconfigured the Big East basically with Maryland and Rutgers and Penn State and Louisville and Syracuse and Boston College and Pitt, and I made a conference up in the Northeast. All right, so the ACC then became, I added Central Florida, South Florida, and I can't remember the exact configuration, but it was 12 teams. I think I took out 4. I took out 5 and I added 3, and I actually put Notre Dame in the Big Ten, but in this situation, since Notre Dame's aligned with the ACC, they would go into the ACC. But in my perfect scenario, the ACC loses those 4 teams and they add Central Florida and South Florida, and you've got a perfectly aligned ACC with Southern schools in the Carolinas and in Florida. That would be my remedy.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I agree with that, but I don't ever see it happen because one of my friends he works at Wake Forest, he says it's about television markets. I don't know if you heard this at what point right before Maryland had moved and the ACC made up that new rule about the gate that you had to give up like a certain percentage of the gate.
Yes.
And, Virginia Tech and NC State might move over to the SEC because of market. Because they wanted SEC wanted to ride in the Virginia market. So they were talk about that. But of course, State is a bigger basketball school than it is a football school, so they won't go for it. And Virginia Tech, I don't know why they decided to stay, but that was one of the things that I was hearing at one point. And time that when Maryland had moved, they were thinking about doing it. I even think Florida State was thinking about moving over to SEC at one point.
Yes.
In time period. But Notre Dame, they need to get up with the times and go to a conference. But I don't see it happening. There was something else I saw this week. These quarterbacks. I see all these quarterbacks transferring. Like the kid out of Ohio State, Baldwin, just transferred. The transfer portal.
Yes.
Or Tate Martell. And I know people are going to say, why would you go to Oregon State or Illinois? But I don't get that. I want to go somewhere, if you don't want a quarterback competition, and I'm not saying Illinois or Ohio State Oregon State has bad quarterbacks, so I don't keep up with those teams. But why would you go to a school like that instead of trying to go to a place where you ain't going to put your talents on the field? I don't get that. All these guys are transferring. Well, I'll go transfer over to Miami, or I'll go transfer to Florida or somewhere else where there's an established quarterback or a quarterback that they like. I don't get that. I don't get why some of these guys are doing it. Like just transferring to another power school and may not be able to start right away because that's their goal. Their goal should be get education, but their main goal is to try to get into the NFL, and they want to showcase their talent. And I think they'll be doing better by going to a small school like Illinois or Oregon State, someplace like that.
Yeah, so if we look at quarterback play over the last few years, you named two of the schools that have had some of the worst quarterback play in FBS, and that's Illinois and Oregon State. I'm just talking over the last 3 to 5 years. They've both had just awful times finding decent quarterback play. But you're right. So there are, I think, 64 teams in the Power Five. There's going to be competition somewhere. You can only run to so many places and not find another person that's going to be capable to compete with. I also don't know if Matthew Baldwin just basically thought maybe he was a bit upset. This is complete conjecture. I have nothing to base this on. But considering Justin Fields' performance in the spring game, that Matthew Baldwin was thinking, it doesn't matter what I do unless this kid just completely crashes and burns. He's the starting quarterback. They've already determined this. I can't win this job.
Right. Yeah, was Fields' performance that bad? Because I kept hearing that it wasn't that good. I mean, I didn't watch it.
It was.
I know.
It was awful.
Go ahead. Wow.
He hit 4 of 13 passes. I don't know that he had any drops. There might have been a drop or two, maybe. I'd have to go back and look. He went 4 for 13. He had one ball that was an okay throw, but the kid took it 99 yards for a touchdown. I think it was Benjamin Victor. So you take that out, and basically it was a run and catch. It wasn't like he threw a 50-yard bomb that went 99 for a touchdown. He threw a 99-yard touchdown pass technically, but you take that out of the equation, and he's 3 for 12 for 33 yards. It was a poor performance.
Right. So yeah, I was wondering, because that's why I think I asked you one time before, what made Fields the number 1 quarterback and Trevor Lawrence the number 2 quarterback by some publications, because I never seen Fields play, but I'm not saying that Trevor Lawrence is way better than a quarterback at Georgia right now. Form.
Sure.
We all can see that. So that means that means that Fields was ranked higher than Lawrence. Fields should have been able to beat the quarterback of Georgia out. I mean, I don't know what goes on with all of that, but
DeAndre,
quarterback's pretty good.
DeAndre, if you think about it, in evaluating high school quarterbacks, the one thing that's difficult to evaluate the transition to the collegiate level is, I bet if you took out Justin Fields to a football field with Trevor Lawrence and they just threw the ball out, they just threw the ball around the field, that the velocity, the accuracy, some of those things would be very similar. The thing that you can't equate is that the level of high school defenses and the complexity is so basic and vanilla, you can't tell who's going to read a difficult defense, who's going to make the right read, who's going to grasp a more difficult playbook, who is going to make throws that are so accurate and on time with anticipation, because you don't have to do that in high school. These kids are so good that they're rarely facing the type competition where they have to throw the ball on time in a tight window, that they have to anticipate, and probably the mobility factor of Fields also put him in the Trevor Lawrence range in terms of a total quarterback evaluation. I'm sure Lawrence was evaluated as I don't want to say a significantly better passer, but a decidedly better passer. But with Fields' mobility, the kid can run, that it was probably determined that overall that they were comparable.
Right. Yeah, I just don't get that. I look at some of these guys, and it's like Clemson. They got so many receivers. It's like, and I'm grateful that they're coming to Clemson, but I'm like, dude, you could go to another school and probably start. Like, why are you there? You ain't gonna get that many balls. I mean, I didn't see a lot of that stuff. Like, I think I brought this up when we saw Hunter Johnson come to Clemson, and next year Trevor Lawrence was coming. It's like, wow, you got the two best pocket quarterbacks the last 2 years, covered in Clemson. And I remember what happened at Texas A&M where they had a whole bunch of quarterbacks come at the same time.
Oh, yeah.
I was worried about the same situation. It's like, wow, you got all these quarterbacks like piling up at one school. You only got one ball. You can't keep them all happy. And I saw that with Texas A&M. So I don't understand why all of them pile up. I just want to go. If I want to go somewhere, I'm going to play. And my goal is to get to the NFL. And that's why Fields left Georgia, because he wanted to get a chance to play to show his skill level. So why not go to a school like a Mississippi State or somewhere where you're going to start, Illinois or Oregon State or those type of schools, Baylor. I mean, I just don't get there thinking if my son grows up to be that good, I would tell him, well, why would you want to go to Georgia and Tennessee got to play? It's not like offensive lineman where you got 5 positions and somebody got to rotate out, but quarterback, nah, I just don't. I don't get it. I know you want to go where you have talent around you at, but at the same time, too much piling up. I mean,
all right, DeAndre.
It's crazy.
Got a couple other calls coming in here. I appreciate the phone call. Well, thanks, DeAndre. We'll talk to you later.
Yes,
bye.
The call will start.
This is Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Hey, Mark Rogers. This is Prince 601, buddy.
Hey, Prince. What's going on, man?
Hey, is DeAndre still on the line? Or
No, he's not.
Oh, he's hung up. So I wanted to say something we are talking about was what a lot of so from the start, I played Division I college baseball at a college in Charleston for 2.5 years. We're Division I. We play Clemson, Carolina. Our rival is actually Coastal Carolina, who won they won the World Series a couple years back.
That's right.
Yep. So, we usually have a top 25 squad, and actually my freshman year we led all of D1 in home runs. But the reason I have relevancy is I was a pitcher at College of Charleston, and so from what they say is the guy from the Kansas City Chiefs, I don't know why I just forgot his name. Got a cannon from Texas Tech.
Patrick Mahomes.
Mahomes throws on average about like a 58 mile an hour football, which is, I mean, that's scalding right there. I mean, that's up there with Drew Brees. I mean, anybody you want to put in the NFL, like they're up there in that. They're in the high 50s range. And Trevor Lawrence had a couple balls clocked last year, like 61.5 to 62 miles an hour. Which, I mean, if in layman's terms, if he were to throw a fastball like off a mound and have the equal velocity that translates, I mean, that's about a 98, 99 mile an hour fastball. So, I mean, and I think Fields was up there too, but I mean, he just has a cannon. Like, he's a unique guy, cannon of an arm. I doubt we'll see another Trevor Lawrence in 20 years. Like, to be honest with you.
Really?
I know I'm a Clemson fan, but like, yeah, I mean, I'm just like putting the numbers out there. Yeah, if you actually Google it, you'll see that Patrick Mahomes, Brett Favre, and them, they throw 58 to 59 mile an hour football, which is very heavy.
Prince, let me stop you there for a second. Let me stop you there for just a second, because I want a clarification there. When you say we won't see a Trevor Lawrence for 20 years, what are you talking about? Are you talking about velocity on the throw? Because that's what you're talking about. You're talking velocity on throws.
Yeah, that's
okay.
Exactly what I'm just talking about sheer velocity.
Okay.
Well, we haven't seen one in the past. I can't say we won't see one. I'll say we haven't seen one in 20 years throw that hard. Probably since John Elway could throw a fastball. A lot of people don't know. He could throw a fastball on a baseball mound. He was a pitcher back in the day. He could throw 98 miles an hour. So that translates to about 60, 61 mile an hour football.
Okay.
And the reason that's important is, I mean, when you, especially in the NFL, is you have these small windows
Sure.
to where you can throw a ball, so you have to have the velocity to hit them.
Absolutely.
All right. Anyways, definitely what I want to get into is the 2020 class, which is, I mean, because a lot of people are saying Clemson football is going to fall off and everything like that. I don't know if you know Brian Breezy. I'm sure you've heard his name a couple of times.
I have.
Defensive tackle. He's looking between Ohio State and Clemson right now. He just canceled his visits to Texas A&M and Alabama. And I believe he's leaning Clemson right now as the word on the street. And that's what 247 Sports says. But he's announcing here in a couple of weeks, I think April 20-something, 23rd maybe.
Yeah.
So, man, he's he would be a clutch get to fill that Christian Wilkins spot as a defensive tackle. He's 6'5", 290. But, I mean, he can play the edge. That's how athletic that guy is. Just a freak athlete.
All right, Prince.
And I'm just looking at 247 Sports as we talk right now. Just for my Clemson guys. They're also looking to get the number 6 overall player, DJ Ugalele, as everybody's talking about. Number 6 player overall from California, who's also, I think his last 2 choices are Clemson and Oregon. But, a lot of people, hopefully he does lean with Clemson. He's kind of a Dwayne Haskins kind of guy. He's 6'5", 6'4", about 250 pounds. Not very mobile, but he's got a cannon for an arm. He's basically a Dwayne Haskins. And nobody can complain with a Dwayne Haskins-like quarterback.
I don't think so. So we've got a couple people on here. One is saying, I believe it's Tennis Wilson, is saying that Breeze will definitely go to Georgia. Somebody else, Barron, is telling us that Breeze will definitely not go to Georgia. So anyway, that's a little analysis
he
there.
He just went to. We were at the past. I don't know if you know the YouTubers Pig Skin Pete and Bobby Durkins.
Yeah, I had Bobby on.
I know you know Bobby.
Well, I've had them both on. I had Pigsky and Pete
Yep,
on
yep,
a
yep.
couple weeks ago too. Yep.
Yeah, they're good friends of mine. We hang out a lot. We went to the spring game together, and DJ Ugalele went across the country. He came to our campus for that week. He saw the ring ceremony. He came to our spring game, and he got like a standing ovation walking off the field. And I think that's why a lot of people think that he is going to Clemson. And, he's got a very religious family who also loves Clemson, for that reason with Dabo.
Yep.
Not saying that he will go there for sure, but, according to 247 Sports and the experts, they all believe it. So, it would be nice to have a guy already in line to follow Trevor Lawrence. That way it'd give him a year to learn under Trevor,
Absolutely.
But also, I'm looking at 247 Sports right now, actually, as I talk to you. And that same 2020 class, we have Jordan Birch and Miles Murphy, who are the 8th and 9th players overall.
Mm-hmm.
Both defensive ends wanted to join in on that Clemson line. And we already got a commit from Fred Davis, who's like the number 33 is a 5-star, and then it turns to 4 stars after that. So he's a number 35 player cornerback, just committed to us as well. So the future is looking very bright in Clemson so far.
Good stuff from Prince tonight. Prince, I believe this is the first time you've called, I believe, and you joined me faithfully in the live chat and in the comments, so I appreciate you helping us with the channel here.
Oh, definitely. I tell everybody about you, man. I love your channel. I tell everybody now, I'm all over college. Everybody in the chat knows me. They see me around. So I'm all over all the college football channels. And, I get my fair share of trash talk in, but I do a lot of studying. Especially as a former D1 athlete, like, you know, I just know the hardship these guys go through, man. It's
Yeah.
you know, it's not like you know, it's not fun when you get to college, man. It's a job. It's a full-time job. I mean, even at Charleston baseball, I mean, it's wake up at 5 a.m. We would run the bridge in Charleston about 3.5 miles. You know, we'd go to class from 9 to about 1, practice from 2 to 5. Then we have weights from 3 to 5, and then we have study hall from about 7 to 10 o'clock. So I mean, it's a full-time job.
Yeah.
So,
you're absolutely right, and
it's a grind.
I've got issue with it, but it's not going to change. It's not going to go in reverse, and I've got a lot to say about it, but not for this time. But it's not going to change. It's not going to go in reverse. That's for sure. And I think it's basically affected.
Well, I mean, the job that we put out there, I mean, it justifies the scholarships, because I mean, I would bet if you put the hours we put in for scholarships, I mean, it is a job.
Absolutely, it is. Absolutely, it is.
So, yeah, it would just happen to be my coach at College of Charleston. I ended up transferring to Clemson to finish my undergrad and my grad degree there. Is now the baseball coach at Clemson is Monty Lee. He was my baseball coach at College of Charleston too.
All right, Prince, we appreciate the call. And as soon as you made the mention of you, Pigskin, and Bobby Durkins at the Clemson spring game, I thought, you know, if I can get this channel to the point I would like to, you know, next year, I would love to make a spring practice tour and travel all over the place. I'd go to the Clemson spring game, the Miami, whomever else, and that would be exceptional. Would love to get out and meet some of you.
I have a condo near Clemson that they all came and stayed at, man. So you're welcome to come. You got a free place to stay. If you ever want to come to Clemson,
that's awesome.
Just let me know. You got a free place to stay at, brother.
All right, Prince. We appreciate the call. Again, I think this is the first time you've called, but man, I've been watching your comments for a long, long time.
Good to hear from you, Mark.
Thanks, Prince. You have a good night, man. We'll talk to you later. Prince, 6'1", and I think the first time I ever noticed Prince writing to the channel, I had some fun with his Prince 6'1" handle. I do remember that. And again, Prince has commented many times, and that makes his first call in here. Seth, yes, I pulled through for you. I'm always here for you guys. So Seth had made the request, and this will be the only one of the night. So do not make any more helmet requests, anybody. This will be the one I will accommodate for the night. Maybe this will be a running theme that we can carry into future live streams, that the first person that makes a helmet request, I will fulfill that request. But Seth was needing the Miami helmet to get the heck away from the Florida State helmet. And so we accommodated Seth. All right. The thing I was going to talk about, I'm going to finish my promo. I was right in the middle of my promo when I got my first phone call. So those are all the ways you can help Mark Rogers TV. We got a Patreon channel. I know it's not much now. It will be. And I'm going to put this guy on whoever this is, this caller. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Let me get to you in just a second. Hang on. So I want to let everyone know, like the videos, comment to the videos. If you have anything to say, share the videos. So if you love what we're doing here and you love the content, share the videos, throw them out there in social media, Facebook, YouTube, whatever. Also, I want to let everyone know, because if I've got close to 10,000 subscribers on YouTube, and with my other channels, it's like 12 or 13,000, do me a huge favor. Even if you never go back to my Facebook page, because basically what you're going to see on my Facebook page is just a sampling of content to try to build that audience, of course. Just go to my Facebook page. Go to Facebook, Mark Rogers TV. Mark Rogers TV at Facebook. Just go there and like it. That would be tremendous. All right, who's on the line? Oh, it's Deep Barat. Hang on just a second. Do not have you on speaker. And how do I get you on speaker? There we go. Deep Barat, what you got for us tonight?
Yeah, dude, sir. It is very interesting that you have this show on this late in the evening. But I have a very interesting kind of perspective that I want to hear on. I guess I want to hear your perspective on. The Texas A&M athletic director not resigned. I guess, I mean, he left for LSU. And so now there's a bunch of rumors circulating this off season that Texas A&M is now going to lose Jimbo Fisher as head coach, and that's probably not going to happen this year. But the story goes is that Jimbo Fisher will go and rejoin the same athletic director who he has this very close bond relationship with. Part of the huge reason why he even signed with Texas A&M to begin with, and now he's going to go on to LSU in 2020. And obviously he has no buyout, so I mean, basically has the full right to leave. The thing is, though, is that, I mean, it's just all a bunch of, like, you know, nonsense rumors, or do you think there's actually, like, a legitimate claim to it? And then speaking of, like, coaches that are projected to move or transfer, I guess, like, go to another program, USC, there's a lot of rumors circulating that USC is going to land Urban Meyer in 2020. I'm not saying it's a definite kind of move because we don't know yet. I mean, it wouldn't be far-fetched considering Meyer's history and I guess his young, youthful age at 54, 55. I know you're a big Ohio State fan, so you may or may not like that news. But I just want to hear your thoughts and perspective on both of those things.
Well, I'll tackle Urban Meyer to USC first and foremost. And some of these rumors get started because there is a logical deduction to make. So-and-so coach is really good. So-and-so coach has done X, Y, and Z to lose favor at the current school, or they just stepped away. So-and-so is failing at their position at that prime school that's an elite school, and therefore they're going to be looking for an elite coach, and it would be a challenge for that particular coach, or a very enticing offer, both monetarily and in terms of the challenge and the prestige of the school, et cetera, et cetera. Dabo Swinney, when Nick Saban leaves Alabama, would Dabo Swinney leave to go to Alabama? Consider the coaching legacy that Dabo Swinney could leave. It could be the greatest in the history of college football if he wins 3 to 5 national championships at Clemson, let's say, and then after 10 or 12 years goes to Alabama and wins another 3 or 4 national championships. Can you imagine the legacy that Dabo Swinney would have right in front of him making that decision? So I understand when people put things into play, and Dabo Swinney, of course, graduated from and played at Alabama. So there's a narrative there that makes total sense.
USC is a blue blood, too. It's not like USC is some
yes.
program.
So USC is attractive from a number of standpoints. Yes, it's a blue blood. It's tradition rich. Depending on your preference of where to live, a lot of people are attracted to California, Southern California, for obvious reasons. The recruiting stranglehold that you would think Urban Meyer would place on the Pac-12 to go into a weak conference with a place that has all the prestige and the name recognition and everything going for it, the location, and then you add to that one of the greatest coaches of all time, then you know you would think that he would think, I could dominate the Pac-12. It's not like he's joining one of 6 or 7 schools in the SEC that throws a ton of money at football and packs out 100,000 seat stadiums and are so rabid that it's just a dogfight. I could see the enticement to USC. And even though Ohio State is the job for Urban Meyer, it has always been the job as an Ohioan, as a disciple of Earl Bruce, who was always said, this is the destination job. This is the job I want. I believe that he was not pleased. And when I say not pleased, I'm saying it very politely, pissed off with the way the school didn't, at least on the surface, did not fight for him in regards to sending down that 3-game suspension. Many people thought he should have been fired. Many people thought he should have been suspended for the season. There were other people certainly in his corner that thought, nothing came of that, and we could argue it and did. I did like 7 hours on it at the time of the ramifications and the evidence, therefore. But in terms of hardcore evidence, he didn't do anything wrong against the rules. And certainly the reason that decision took all day and they didn't start that news conference, it was expected to be 3-4 o'clock in the afternoon, and they didn't hit that news conference until 9 or 10 o'clock at night, is that Urban Meyer was fighting for his credibility and that the university should stand up for him and not give him a 3-game suspension. So I think he took that very hard and took that as the school and the athletic department not standing up for him to the nth degree. And therefore, yes, at 54 years old, I think this is another possible opportunity that he's thinking, I step away from the game for a year or two, and then I can, again, he is a, if you're just looking at age, of course, everybody's health is different, and he's dealing with what we think is pretty serious. So, yeah, that has certainly stopped college football head coaching careers for guys like Ara Parsegian and others at a very early age. But he's 13 or 14 years younger than Nick Saban, and one of the reasons why I thought he might be able to catch Nick Saban and surpass him was the obvious age difference. So we only Urban Meyer and his doctor know the severity of what happened to him and what he continues to deal with. But if he feels though he can step away from the game, yeah, USC would be, you talk about a legacy going from Utah. I know he went to Bowling Green, but Utah, Florida, Ohio State, and accomplished the same type of record at USC. My goodness, that might be too much for him to turn down, that he could go to USC and win a couple national championships.
Yeah, I think I definitely do agree with a lot of what you're saying. I think it's a very realistic possibility. I think that, it's going to be like a 1-year sabbatical for him next season at Fox. I don't think he likes that job. I personally would, if I had gone through the coaching jobs that he has, I think the Fox job at the age of 54 is kind of.
James Legault, there's one of our viewers, James Legault, in the live chat that's mentioning Urban Meyer's wanting the Notre Dame job. There was certainly a time when he was at Florida, I believe it was in his contract, that the only 2 jobs that he would leave Florida for were Ohio State and Notre Dame. So he has definite ties to Notre Dame as well, because he understands tradition. Pardon me?
Yeah, but sorry to interrupt you there, but I personally don't think that Notre Dame is going to fire Brian Kelly. Or at least, make him resign. But he's done nothing to, I guess, foresee his resignation. I guess he hasn't won a national title, but, let's be honest here, winning a national title is extremely difficult.
And Notre Dame, not to cut you off, but Notre Dame has not traditionally been, even though it's a big football school and we think of it that way, they have not been a cutthroat university that has fired the likes of a Les Miles at LSU for going, 9-3 and 8-4. They typically, if unless you're failing like a Jerry Faust or a Ty Willingham or a Charlie Weiss, where you're barely making 500, Notre Dame hasn't been cutthroat to the point that, you're not winning national championships. You're not getting to New Year's Six games every year. You're gone. They haven't taken football to that nth degree in terms of the standards of their head coaches. So that I agree with what you're saying.
Yeah, and I guess I want to also hear your perspectives on Jimbo Fisher and potentially.
Yes, that's right. That's right. We got lost in the Urban Meyer stuff. I forgot your original question. So I am trying to recall. I know that there's a backstory about the LSU opening and Jimbo Fisher being available from Florida State. So this is after 2017, after, of course, Les Miles was fired 5 games into the 2016 season. Ed Orgeron takes over. Not a lot of people, including myself, thought that he was credible enough for the job, that Jimbo Fisher would go to LSU. And I remember having a lot of discussions about that at the time, but I got to admit, I don't recall the thought process of whether I thought I thought the job was his for the taking, and he didn't take it.
Yeah, and I mean, the job was there for the taking, but the reason that he ended up signing on with Texas A&M is because of the contract. I don't know if you looked into the contract details, but essentially it means that he's basically tenured for the course of that 10 years, can't really be fired, and he's guaranteed the $75 million regardless, even if, let's say, he leaves for a better program. And that's just something that's given to very elite coaches. Only other coach that's kind of been given that kind of recognition is the Alabama head coach, Nick Saban. I mean, obviously, Jimbo Fisher is not Nick Saban, but he has won a national title. He has gotten some credibility and respect with what he has done at Florida State. So the goal is that, he got brought on to Texas A&M because of the athletic director and because he has a very close tie and relationship with the athletic director. I don't know the specifics of their relationship, but that was the main reason that he was brought on to Texas A&M, and one of the only reasons, really. And so now he left, right? I don't know the internal politics because I'm not a Texas A&M fan by any means, as you're well aware. But he left. I mean, he left. I mean, because I guess he didn't like the. Again, I don't want to put any words in your mouth in your mouth that's incorrect, but I think he left the program because he just didn't like it. I guess some of the politics that were going on. I mean, at the time, and he's originally from Baton Rouge, and LSU had some issues that were going on in their program this off season in regards to their directors. They fired him. The job opened up, and he was hired the next day. So there's a lot of rumors circulating now that Jimbo Fisher, because of the athletic director leaving to LSU, is going to follow suit. And I mean, Ed Orgeron is a decent coach. I have nothing against Ed. But I don't think he is probably as big of a name as Jimbo Fisher. And so they're going to give Ed O another run, let's say in 2019. If hypothetically, let's say that Texas A&M performs better than LSU in 2019, which is potentially possible, and O has a bad year at LSU this potential coming year, it's a very realistic situation in which O gets fired and they talk about bringing on Jimbo Fisher for a record contract. And also the politics brewing in the off season for 2020 is that Nick Saban could retire. And, I mean, this could be the last season that he coaches with Alabama. That could be because, Tua would leave for the NFL next year and he would have to kind of start everything again from scratch, which, again, I think that this is a very kind of realistic situation happening in the SEC West. Again, I'm not one to kind of bring up kind of potential rumors or swell on those rumors, but I mean, what do you see happening? Or what are your thoughts on this, I guess?
I don't see Nick Saban retiring. I don't see that. I don't see where he has that in him. It's just that he's a very healthy man for his age. He's full of fire, it's not a Joe Paterno, Bobby Bowden situation where, and I'm not referencing the Bowden or the Paterno issue with Jerry Sandusky, but just from the standpoint, we're not talking about 75-year-old men who had lost their fastball and were still running reputable programs that were going 8-4 generally, but had not lived up to the standards that those two gentlemen had set in those two locations. Nick Saban is still at the top of his game, and again, he appears to have the same fire and focus than he ever has. I just don't see him stepping down anytime soon, real soon. Me personally, I don't know the man, and I know that I'm going on nothing else but what we see on the surface.
Yeah, so, I mean, do you think, I mean, it is a realistic situation, right? I mean, Jimbo Fisher could leave for LSU in 2020. It's not going to happen this season, but, I mean, it's definitely a likely scenario if LSU screws up next year. And I hate to say this, but I mean, LSU's a much better job than Texas. I mean, but I mean, who knows, right? I mean, A&M has been dumping a hell of a lot of money into their football program. They want to see results. They haven't seen a national championship since 1939, and even you said it yourself. Like they're pretty much guaranteed to be second or third at best in the SEC West, and that's just because Alabama is king.
Yeah, it's a heavy lift there at Texas A&M, and I know that they desperately want to win big there. And they had the quick little burst with Johnny Manziel and Kevin Sumlin for 2 years, but even that wasn't winning huge. They had the one nice season, 11-2, won the Cotton Bowl, but that's been the zenith. And then after that, Kevin Sumlin's bringing in top 5 classes and going 8-5 every year. And I don't know that they can be in any better position from the standpoint of fan base, packing out 100,000 people there in the middle of Texas with all those players surrounding campus that they can go recruit. But they've got the status of second fiddle in the state to Texas, and they've got the status of second or third or fourth fiddle in the division to Alabama, LSU, and Auburn. And they haven't overcome that. They've overcome that in all the things that are periphery to winning and losing. The upgrade to the stadium. They hired the coach with a big name in the national championship and paid him $1 zillion. They've got recruiting rankings that look shiny and good, but they keep losing 4 and 5 games every year. Now, Jimbo Fisher, I'm not pinning that on him. Obviously, they were much improved last year and played really well against better competition, and it appears as though he is able to raise them to another level, but it's going to be mighty difficult. Yes, you only have one entryway out of that division, and they have yet to show that they can pull it off.
Yeah, and you know, I don't want to say I got into an argument with a Texas A&M fan yesterday, but I had a conversation with one, and you know, some of them are talking about how they could be in the playoffs next year. They're going to go 11-1, and then I showed them their schedule. Right, I just wanted to be very polite to this fan. You know, they are going to Clemson. They're playing Alabama. They're playing Georgia at Georgia, and they're playing LSU at LSU. Now, I'm not saying they're going to lose all 4 of those games, but they're going to lose at least 3 and probably 4 because I don't see them winning at Georgia or LSU.
Deeparad, if they go 11-1 with that schedule, and I am, as you well know, I am the biggest proponent of all conference champions being represented in the college football playoff, I would not have an issue with Texas A&M if they lost head-to-head against Alabama with a respectable score, and they beat LSU, Georgia, Auburn, Clemson, all those other teams, and they made the playoff, I'd say, you know what? That's fine. This is a broken system anyway. Let them in. Yeah, they're not going 11-1 against that schedule.
You know, and again, I can understand the desperation from their fan base, but I also told them the worst case scenario because, you know, like I'm a pretty big nerd when it comes to this, I guess, sensitivity analysis of like best and worst case scenario of both teams. I mean, I think they could very easily lose to Mississippi State and Auburn and possibly lose to a no-name team like South Carolina. I mean, I could very realistically see them being good team, but they could go with 6-6 or even 5-7. Probably not 5-7 because they're not going to lose to a team like South Carolina, but definitely 6-6. They've beaten Mississippi State once in 5 years. They've lost to Mississippi State 3 years in a row, even at College Station.
Yes. So to your point, I could see them going 7-5. And I would be telling everyone, let's say they're playing respectable, good games against all these tough opponents. I would sit on here, as I have in the past, and say that team 7-5, nobody's ranking them in the top 25 in the country, but they are legitimately one of the 25 best teams in the country. If we just had a round robin and everybody had to play everyone, this is one of the 15 or 25 best teams in the country, but their record doesn't represent that, so nobody ranks them there. Yes, that could happen.
Yeah, and do you think that they're going to be? I mean, obviously, this season will give us a lot of data points, but do you really think they're going to be a team that's going to be a championship contender in 2020, or is that just hype?
Based on the recruiting, based on the recruiting, which is similar to the recruiting that we saw under Kevin Sumlin, but they've got a different guy in play. That certainly, based on what we saw last year out of that team and how much better they played against top opponents, they beat LSU.
But they didn't play good at, I mean,
they played the best game Alabama saw the entire regular season. And I know the final score didn't look it, but that was a one-score game with about
31.
What?
Yeah, it was 66-31.
No.
Or it was something high.
No.
Arkansas. There was
No, it was like 41-24, something like that. I could come up with the score off the top of my head if I really thought about it. It was like 41-24, 45-24, something like that. It was like a 21-13 game with 4 or 5 minutes left in the third quarter. They played Alabama better than anybody in the regular season. It wasn't even close.
It was 45-23, but
there you go.
Yeah,
it was 21-13 with about 4 or 5 minutes left in the third quarter. So they had a one-score game, and yeah, they played Alabama better than anybody in the regular season. It wasn't even close. To what anybody else. LSU didn't come close to that kind of effort. Mississippi State didn't. Nobody did. So yeah,
An interesting point to note with Texas A&M too is that all of those games that they've won last year that were big games were on the road. I mean, at home.
Yeah, they beat LSU at home.
They don't play well at all.
They won at Auburn. No, whoa. My bad. They had a lead. No, they didn't lose very badly. They dominated that game. They dominated that game and had a 10-point lead with about 5 minutes left, and they blew the game. Believe me, I remember that game.
They lost badly to Mississippi State.
Yes. So they were much improved last year. I don't think there's any question they were much improved. They took the national champion to the wire. They played the best game Alabama played the entire season. They beat LSU. They outplayed Auburn for 55 minutes and blew the game because Mon threw a horrible interception. Yeah, they took NC State completely to the cleaners in the bowl game by 40 points. They were much improved last year. And when I say much improved, it wasn't like they were the 60th best team in the country and then they became the top 5 team. They were one of the 15 best teams in the country last year.
That's fair enough. Yeah, I think that 2020 will be an interesting year for A&M, and it's simply because Alabama will lose Tua. Is it Tua? Yeah, it's Tua. They'll lose Tua to the draft, right? So it won't be a rebuilding year for Alabama in 2020, but it's definitely the best chance that Texas A&M has to win the SEC West, depending on how well they do. I mean, who knows, right? I mean, Texas A&M could just blow everything in the water in 2019. And just, fail to live up to expectations like they have since 1939. But this is their best chance, I think, that these next 2 years. And if they don't perform well next year, like I said, I think it's a very realistic possibility that Jimbo Fisher will go to LSU, O will be fired, and the SEC will go through a new restructure. Speaking of which, a very interesting point I wanted to bring up. Obviously, that diehard Texas fan, right? Like, I loved the Texas A&M and Texas rivalry growing up. But A&M does not want to play us anymore. And, I mean, I can understand why, too. It could be a huge loss for them to continue losing to their rival that they lost to several times. 76, 37, and 5 is the all-time record. But they don't want to schedule the rivalry anymore. So Texas, I guess, I don't know if they're proving a point or something, but what I've noticed with us is that we're scheduling our out-of-conference schedule next decade entirely with SEC teams. And the reason I wanted to bring that point up is because just yesterday we just agreed to play Florida in a home-and-home series in 2030 and 2031.
I like that. Yeah.
A brand new series of news. So the Texas A&M Texas rivalry won't happen for at least another 10 to 15 years, if it ever even is brought up again. But Texas, to prove a point that, just because A&M is in the SEC does not mean that Texas is a lesser team or can't play these big boy SEC teams and win. Obviously, you saw what happened with Georgia, but in the regular season, Texas will play, beginning with LSU, then it's going to be Alabama, then they'll play your beloved Ohio State Buckeyes.
That's right.
Then they play Michigan and Georgia to round up 20, 28, and 29. So 20, 30, and 31 now have Florida. So, I mean, I'm not saying the Big 12 is weak, because under no circumstances is Oklahoma a weak team. But for Texas, especially with the current college football playoff system the way it is and people judging each other against out-of-conference play, I do think that Texas has lined itself up the best way it can to play several blue blood or on the cusp blue blood programs, the best that it can get from, the Big Ten and the SEC in coming years. So,
yep. I love those matchups.
I'm very happy with the work that our athletic director is doing. But again, who knows, right? And also, we have a very young head coach in Tom Herman, but I wanted to bring up those 3 points. It is the off season, so it is kind of slow, right? There's not a lot of groundbreaking news that's happening. But I guess what I want to conclude from this is you're not very bullish, or you don't really consider the rumors regarding Jimbo Fisher to LSU to be big. Do you kind of agree that he's probably going to stay at A&M or no? Oh, and also I want to know your thoughts on Edo. So last point.
So when Ed Ogeron was hired at LSU, I thought that was a mistake. He has validated the hire to a certain extent. He's done a decent job. He's done a fine job. He's not failed, nor has he accomplished at the level that LSU fans would expect. We think of LSU based on what Nick Saban established, and Les Miles continued, at least for a few years, to be a contender for the national championship. And Ed O, in what now 2.5 seasons, so he has concluded 3 seasons, has not been able to live up to that standard. But he certainly pulled through with a nice season this past year. So it's been a decent hire. But again, I believe that LSU fans would expect more and would expect elite coaching, and I don't see him as an elite coach. And so Jimbo Fisher, I believe, based on what I saw out of Jimbo Fisher at Florida State, and based on what he's done in one season in recruiting and developing one team to play at a much higher level than the team previous, that he's an upgrade over Ed Ogeron. Now, whether he would go to LSU versus Texas A&M, so from a historical standpoint, I completely agree that there's not a huge argument between LSU and Texas A&M, and certainly in the last 20 seasons or so, LSU's been a much better football program overall. But if you look at resources and recruiting ground and ability to win, and they play in the same division, I don't know that there's a whole lot of difference between the two.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to get fired. That's just, who knows, right? LSU has proven that it's going to fire a coach if they don't play in the first few games. But they're not going to fire O. But who knows? The next off season is a long way away. I've seen really weird things happen in college football.
That's right. All right, so Deeper Rot. So I like this Texas-Florida matchup. So if you can answer this question without looking it up online, you will be the recipient of the very first Mark Rogers TV Voice of College Football T-shirt whenever that comes out. It might be like 2027, but whenever it comes out, if you can tell me the last time Texas and Florida played, because as soon as you mentioned that matchup, their last matchup came to mind.
Yeah, let me think about this. I think, do I have to nail it here or?
Well, it's got to sound reasonable that you know when they played.
Okay, this is going to be tough. I would guess it's okay. This is going to be the teams of the 70s and the 80s. Man, this is hard. This is hard. I know they only played twice, and I know that Texas is 2-0. Oh, okay. I'm going to guess it's going to be the 1980s. Is that correct? Roughly.
So I'm going to award you with a win and a T-shirt for getting the right decade.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You know what our standards are here on this show, Deeparad. You know, this is the voice of college football. This is for the hardcore college football fan. We can't be awarding things based on, if you said, when's the last time Texas A&M beat Alabama? And, of course, that was the 2012 Johnny Manziel year. If I said 2001, is that good enough? I don't think you would accept that answer.
No, but hey, I mean, at least I would hope that I was close. Is that correct?
I'm almost positive. I would not bet my mortgage on this, but I'm almost positive that the last time Florida and Texas played was in the 1982 Blue Bonnet Bowl, and I believe the score was 28-24. Check me on the score as well. 28-24, I believe, was the final score. And everybody can see that no hands here. I was not looking anything up during that entire time. All right, Deeparad, I appreciate the call.
Anything in the chat here? Let's see, Texas versus
No, nobody's listening to our Texas-Florida discussion. We've lost everyone. All right, man. I appreciate the call.
Yeah. That's good. But yeah, man, I really do appreciate it.
Press 1 to start the call or 2 to decline. The call will start at the beep.
All right. It's Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Let me explain something before we go to our next caller. So, as you can see here, I got an iPhone. I'm holding it up to a mic. This is not the best way to do that. I need to get some production software. Also, I know Deeparad was on the line for 32 minutes. I take these calls for a little bit too long, so I'm going to be, I don't want anyone to take offense that I'm being short or rude or in any way, but I don't think we generally in other online platforms or radio shows or sports talk shows do people take 32-minute phone calls. So I'm not going to continue to do that. It's a little bit long, and I don't know that this really holds the audience when we've got a caller on for 32 minutes. So anyway, that being said, who's on the line?
Hey, this is Francis one again. I'm sorry for calling again. I had to.
No, that's all right. What's going on?
All right. So I wanted to change your mind about something.
You're going to change my mind.
I want to change your mind about the playoff system. That I know you're all about the 8-team playoff.
Okay.
And I just looking over the last 5 to 6 years.
Good luck changing my mind. Go ahead.
Well,
it's not going to happen.
I want to present an argument that you should think about. So,
okay.
For the last 5 to 6 years, I would argue that the BCS has got it right, with the number 1 and 2 teams.
The BCS.
Well, I'm sorry.
The committee.
The CFP, the committee.
Okay.
I would argue that they've gotten the last, at least 1 to 2 teams right.
Okay. So
one of the 1, 2.
So Prince, my first counterpoint is, how do we know that they got it right if none of the teams that missed had any opportunity to play anybody that made it? There's always, I could pick 4.
That's a great point.
I could pick 4 teams. I could pick, let's say, I want Kentucky, Purdue, Iowa State, and Washington State to play in the playoff this year, and one of them's going to win. So there's a winner, and every time I hear this out of people after the national championship game and there's a winner, everybody says, well, that justified their selection because obviously, yes, somebody won the game. But also take into consideration, and I'll let you continue, Prince, is that they have never, if they are so smart at selecting the 4 best teams in the country, if they're so good at that, they have never selected the 1 seed correctly.
You're right.
Never.
Right. That's a point that you're very right about. But what they have done is they have selected the top 2. I believe, right?
I don't know.
Do you agree with that?
Okay, based on my analysis. Okay, hang on just a second. Based on my analysis, 2018, yes. 2017, 2017, yes. Alabama, Georgia. Okay. 2016, Alabama, Clemson. Yes. 2015, Alabama, Clemson. Well, in 2015, Ohio State was. There's no question. There's no question. I don't, and let me explain this, and I've explained this many times in the past.
For sure. No,
I did not believe that Ohio State should have been in the playoff in 2015. So people out there, don't confuse 2016 and 2015. I'm talking about 2015.
2015 is when Ohio State won it, right?
No, they won it in 2014. In 2015, Ohio State, there is no doubt that they had one of the 4 best teams in the country. I think they had the best team in the country, and certainly one of the 2 best teams in the country, but they didn't make the playoff. And this is before the committee got off of its track of conference champions. So they were set in that, conference champion, boom, so they don't get in. And I agree with that, but then they changed their minds a year or 2 a year later with Ohio State. So 2015, I don't believe the 4 best teams were there. So I don't believe the 2 best teams were there, but certainly Alabama and Clemson were at a high caliber. And that was a legitimate championship game, of course. In 2014, you know what? It could be argued. I'd have to look at the rest of the AP poll in 2014. So this is what I didn't understand about 2014. So we had some huge issues in 2014. So you had Florida State undefeated. So they get in fine, even though they didn't play well all year. And then they got housed by Oregon by 39 points in the Rose Bowl. They were undefeated. Alabama, Oregon, Ohio State, TCU, and Baylor all had 1 loss. So you had 4 teams. No, you had 5 teams for 3 slots. They all had 1 loss. For some mystical reason that's never been explained to me, Alabama and Oregon were given a free pass into the playoff. They both had a loss, but there was no question that they deserved, quote, in quotes, deserved to be in the playoff. For some reason, there was this argument between Ohio State, Baylor, and TCU. I don't know why the argument didn't include all 5 of them. It's we get into these groupthink narratives and the national media tells us how to think. And it's like, well, Alabama and Oregon, I know they lost a game, but they're in the playoff. We got to have an argument between Ohio State, TCU, and Baylor. Why? So that's the first issue, is that we had a co-championship in the Big 12. And I clearly stated, now Ohio State justified the selection by winning the national championship, but I clearly stated that Ohio State didn't deserve it any more than either TCU or Baylor. The Big 12 was just too stupid to tell us who their champion was. So they told us they had co-champions, so that automatically eliminated both of them.
Oh, man. I have to say, that is the first amazing rant I've ever heard you do on. That was amazing just to listen to that.
I just went on a rant yesterday. I went on a rant yesterday or the day before. A couple days ago, I went on a rant, and
you're so professional. It's great to hear you go on a rant.
Well, I appreciate that.
Even Paul Feinbaum goes on a rant.
Oh, if you get me fired up about playoffs and stupid comments that people make, I went on a rant the other day. So I fired up a live stream, Prince, the other day because there were like 5 consecutive just within a 5-minute span, like 5 people made completely idiotic comments. So I was like, I'm firing up a live stream right now, and I just tore him to shreds. And this guy Timba Wolf, who writes in, this is the Mark I like to see. And I'm like, well, it just takes idiotic. And I'm not saying you made idiotic comments. You just pointed me toward the playoff. And I go nuts about the playoff.
I love rants, man. That's passion. When you're passionate about something, you rant about it, you know? If you didn't care, you wouldn't say anything.
So the last thing I'll say before I let you continue, Prince, is that I could take us through every year of the BCS, even the years in which there were two undefeated teams.
I want to hear you rant more. Go on. Come on.
I could take us through every year of the BCS. And this is what I tried to do. I started a video.
How about the 01 Hurricanes? Okay. I will say this. Out of all the fan bases I've met online, there's a reason you have a Mark Rogers Miami channel, because I will admit it, Miami fans are the most passionate fan base on YouTube. I mean, bar none.
You know what I think?
Sorry, but bar none.
You know what I think happened, and I don't know how old you are, Prince. Well, we're talking about playing college baseball.
I'm 30 years old. I was born in '88.
Okay. Oh, I'm an old guy. So regardless of how old they think I am, I'm pretty old. So, I'm watching college football starting in like 1978. So when Miami started to win, I'm like, I was steeped in Ohio State, Alabama, Notre Dame, Oklahoma, Texas, So Miami started to win, and I was annoyed by it because I'm like, who are these? Even though I was a young kid, I just didn't like a newcomer to the party. I wasn't really into Florida State either. Oh, yeah. Florida State, I'm like, why are they winning? The teams that are supposed to win are supposed to be Notre Dame and Ohio State and Alabama. So anyway, my point being, what I think has happened, you were talking about the rabid fan base at Miami. What I think has happened is they were just so swag and chic and fun for kids growing up from the mid 80s into the early 90s, that regardless of whether you were from Miami or North Dakota, if you just started watching college football and you had no allegiance to your state, then you're going to be a Miami fan because you thought it was cool. And so they've built up a pretty large fan base from that generation.
You just nailed it on the head. Because you know what I've noticed too is a lot of these dead hardcore Miami guys do not live in the state of Florida.
No.
So they're passionate about this. They're passionate about even Dennis Wilson, Alonzo. None of those guys don't even live in Florida. And I think a combination of the cool and especially the turnover chain, I think that brought a lot out. I thought that was genius, what Manny Diaz did. That revolutionized the sport. When you watch SportsCenter, it was all about it was all about the turnover chain, I thought that was very cool.
Very, very good. Yeah, definitely. So the first you want me to go on a rant? I'm just going to take 1 year for example.
No, go on a rant, please. I'm just trying to psychoanalyze why so many Miami fans do not live in Florida. Yeah.
Well, I think that's it. I think that's it right there.
It was like a cool factor, isn't it?
Most of them are probably about 30, 35, 40 years old.
I totally agree.
So in 1998, we came up with this remarkable BCS formula, which from right out of the gate, I said, well, this is asinine. This makes no sense because here's the deal. Do you know what sport, and I've said this a number of times, so I'm sure there's people out there rolling their eyes. Do you know what sport would be a perfect fit for the BCS?
None.
Major League Baseball. Well, you're right. None. That's the ultimate correct answer. But if it had to be applied to any sport, it should be applied to Major League Baseball. They play 162 games. If there's any mathematical formula that should get something right, it's like, well, we got 162 games to analyze every freaking team in the league.
No, from a statistical standpoint, you're right, but at the same time, as a baseball player,
no. I am in no way arguing that there shouldn't be a playoff in every sport. Yes, but I'm saying,
I agree.
If you have mathematical data based on results on the field that should be valid, it's for that sport. Not a sport where they only play 12 games and nobody plays each other, that there's not even a single game between the Pac-12 and the SEC, and we're going to measure this mathematically? Seriously? So what happened in the first year is that Tennessee God bless them. They were the luckiest team in the country, but they skated through undefeated. Now, it took Clint Sterner like rolling the ball right to them on midfield against Arkansas, and it took a crazy pass interference at Syracuse to bail them out. But to their credit, they were undefeated. So they're in. Got it. There's one slot, Tennessee, SEC champion. Boom. They've got their slot. Okay. Who plays Tennessee? Well, let's see. Ohio State, Wisconsin, Florida State, Arizona, and UCLA. 5 teams are all 11-1. So you tell me, who's supposed to be playing Tennessee for the national championship? I don't know. Who should be playing them? Well, we should have a playoff. That's what we should have a playoff, not, one of them gets selected. And ironically, the BCS system selects the team that had the worst loss to go play in the national championship. Florida State lost to a 6-6 North Carolina State team by 17 points, but they get to go play in the national championship game.
I mean, it's absurd.
And it continued from there.
Absolutely. Because football is all about matchups. I mean, like, as far as the major leagues goes, I mean, like, from a statistical standpoint, that makes sense because you play 162 games plus postseason. But then again, it's all about who gets hot at the right time in baseball. Like, you know, you could just be an average team, and if you get hot at the right time, you can win the whole thing. And I mean, I guess it goes from football the same. It's all about getting hot at the right time.
Sure, we've seen that in the NFL where the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Green Bay Packers have been 6 seeds. And
it has to matter.
Absolutely, it has to matter. Absolutely.
So that would be my argument. I know you're for an 8-team playoff. I just personally, I think that a 6-team playoff, all of the conference champions, and then you can wild card the last one, either a group of 5 or if you want to pick a wild card. I mean,
no. Prince. No.
Territory. It's rough territory. But here's my argument. All right, so the 2001 Miami Hurricanes, who everybody thinks is like the greatest team ever. Blah,
sure.
Blah. I mean, do you know who they played in the national championship? Number 4 Nebraska.
Come on.
Why are they playing the number 2 or 3 team?
Come on.
It's a joke. The only team, the highest team they played was number 12 all year. Besides that.
There you go. So what happened in that particular season was that Nebraska lost to Colorado on Thanksgiving weekend 62-36 and didn't even make the conference championship game. And the stupid BCS formula still said that they were the second best team in the country and sent them out to go play and get annihilated by Miami. The final score was 37-14. It could have been 77-14, but Miami just didn't play after the first quarter when it was 28-0 and just decided not to play anymore. That game was an embarrassment, and Nebraska couldn't even make it to their conference championship game, but the stupid BCS formula said they're the second best team, and they didn't even there wasn't even enough intellect involved to correct it. So 2 years later, Oklahoma lost the Big 12 championship game 35-7 to Kansas State, who wasn't, they were a good team, but they weren't elite. Kansas State has never had elite talent. Oklahoma loses by 4 touchdowns, but the stupid BCS formula still determines they're the second best team in the country and sent them to go play LSU and lose in the national championship game.
I mean, how ridiculous is that? Like, there's just no common sense involved. So I would take your 8-system playoff for anything, but I would have to argue a 6 because maybe I'm biased, but like I figure there has to be. I mean, only because of the past 5 years, there's been a clear number 1 and number 2. So I just almost want to bonus them somehow.
Prince, you haven't been listening to me. There hasn't been a clear number 1, number 2.
Well, I guess for the playoffs, you're right. I mean, Bama and Clemson have been spread out. You're okay. All right, you're starting to convince me.
Clemson was the number 1 2 years ago, and they lost by 18 points to Alabama.
They did.
And there certainly wasn't a clear number one or number two out of the other two, because Oklahoma took Georgia to overtime.
If we do 18 playoff, are we doing all conference champions?
Before I answer that, let me make one other point, just because I like to. So,
no, definitely. You're a brilliant guy. I love hearing it.
Well, I appreciate it. Prince, do you like any other sport? The NFL, Major League Baseball, whatever.
Well, yeah, definitely. I love Major League Baseball. My stepdad's the hitting coach for the Pittsburgh Pirates. Love it.
Pittsburgh Pirates. All right. Yeah. All right.
I love NFL. I'm a Carolina Panthers fan, unfortunately.
So you're 30 years old. You're a Pittsburgh Pirates fan. There hasn't been a whole lot going on. I used to be, and I still am, a huge baseball fan, but I used to just like soak up numbers and watch all the games like crazy, like college football, but I just don't have the time anymore.
Right.
So my point about the 8 teams. So there's a guy that used to come on here all the time, Mike Laval. I've got tremendous respect for him. He used to write for Last Word on College Football. But the one thing that we would just go head to head on was this playoff system, because he thought 4 was plenty. It's good. And you can just watch the teams and determine they're the 4 best. So my argument, and, you know, there were only about 47 different points to my argument. It wasn't difficult for me to come up with all sorts of cannon fire, but this was one of them. Okay, I'm not wanting college football to be like a professional sport in any way, but in the NFL, nobody complains about the playoff system in the NFL, and you've got 32 teams and you've got 12 make the playoffs. That's like 35 to 40% of the league makes the playoffs. Okay. You've got the same situation in Major League Baseball with 30 teams and 10 make the playoffs. That's a third of the entire league, 33%. In the NBA, it's ridiculous. 16 out of 32, 50% of the league. Okay. In college football, just expanding it to 8 teams out of 130 FBS teams, that's still only 6%. That is still the very cream of the crop would make the playoff. We are not watering it down with 8 teams out of 130. The very top 6% make the playoff.
And I mean, so to add to that argument that you say, I mean, look at March Madness. March Madness is one of the greatest sporting events ever.
Absolutely.
Like what?
And I don't want to water it down with the 64th best team in the country. And the other point that's been thrown at me is that, well, we don't want the 8th best team in the country winning the college football playoff because they didn't deserve it based on their regular season. They're the 8th best team in the country. Well, first of all, we make a judgment with our stupid polls, me included, my top 25 poll, that, oh, they're the 8th best team in the country. Well, who said that they're the 8th best team in the country? We said that they're the 8th best team in the country. But if they get into the playoff and they beat 3 of the 7 best teams in the country in consecutive weeks, you talk about earning a championship. Oh my, they're going to be 8 versus 1. They just beat the number 1 team in the country. Then the next week they'd have to play the 2 seed and beat them. Then they'd have to play like a 4 or 5. They just beat 3 of the 7 best teams in the country in a row, and they didn't deserve to get. And this is after they had like an 11-2 regular. You know, the number 8 team in the country is not going 8-4. They're at least a 10-2, 11-2 team. So they will have well deserved to win the national championship.
Conference playoff, or would you do a committee? I mean, well, obviously I have to do a committee for the last like 2 spots, but would you do like the conference champions automatically get in? Because I think that would like boost the. If anything, that would boost the regular season, right?
Absolutely. This is another farce of an argument, Prince, is that people say that would devalue the regular season. I reverse the argument to say, you know what devalues the regular season is back when the BCS days where we only had 2 teams make it, and we see teams losing conference championship games that still make the final 2 that I just noted, 2 of them. And number 2, basically, we're looking at like 2 games the final weekend that mean anything. The rest of the games are completely meaningless toward getting the final 2 spots. And the same thing holds true with this playoff. where we had about 3 games that meant anything at the final weekend of the season last year. So we could do it one of 2 ways. And I often say it this way because you can either include the group of 5 or say, you know what, group of 5, you're a different brand of football. Go play your own championship. And I would have no issue with either one of them.
Right.
Because, as I like to say from time to time, go ahead.
As a Clemson fan, like we've a lot of Clemson fans, I'm sure, will disagree with me or you right now. But what I'm saying is, there's going to be a time when Clemson doesn't, like, we don't win our conference. Maybe hell, we've messed up a game with Pittsburgh and Syracuse, but maybe we're the best team in the country and we messed that up.
Sure.
So maybe we do want to get in on that 7 or 8 seed, and we have a chance to prove ourselves. So, all right. So you changed my mind. You completely. You changed my mind from 6 to 8. I agree with you.
So think about this. I appreciate that, Prince. As a big Clemson fan, think of this. Consider this. What year did you win your first modern, more recent national championship? Of course, 2016. Okay.
Yeah, 2016.
Where you lost to the Pitt Panthers, as you mentioned, 43-42. Remember that game? James Conner had a big game, 43-42 at Clemson. Think about this. What other game did you win that you won the game not based on a play that Clemson made, but on a goof from the other team that would have eliminated you from the playoff? If North Carolina State could have made a 35-yard field goal, which is not difficult, right. You guys had nothing to do with that. They just missed the field goal. You don't make the playoff.
All right, you just blew my mind. Okay, you just changed my mind. I completely agree with you. I think 8. What do you do? The 5 conference champions because they deserve it, and then do 3. I think a committee of 3 to do the last 3 would be good. You know.
Yes.
There are people say just automatically give group of 5, a chance. Like, no, I kind of don't agree with that because there's times when UCF and all those teams are down. So I think a committee doing the last 3 would be perfect.
Well, if we're going to expand this out to 8 teams and not give the group of 5 an automatic spot, I really think we need to say this is a Power 5 deal, and you need to go play your own playoff, because if we're going to shut them off even at 8 teams, I just don't think, as I like to say this, and I don't know if you've ever heard me say this is one of my favorite rants as well, that this has been proven through 5 years, and I don't disagree with it, that UCF should not have been in the playoff, even though they did everything that they could do the last 2 years. They didn't make the playoff, and I didn't think that they were one of the 4 best teams by any stretch, but I felt for them because they did everything that they could. So what I believe the College Football Playoff Selection Committee should be tasked to do every August is go to every group of 5 training camp, go to practice for they got to go out to Kent State. They got to go to Appalachian State. They got to go to Central. They got to go see every team. And in the middle of practice, there are 2-a-days. They got to gather the team around, and a member of the College Football Playoff Selection Committee is going to say, we appreciate your effort. We know that you're spitting blood and throwing up your guts in these 2-a-days in 98-degree heat. We appreciate your effort. You could go out and win every game 50-0, and you have no chance in hell of making our playoffs. So good luck. We'll see you. Have a good season.
But then again, if we make the best group of 5 team, we could just make them 8 seed, right?
We could. That would be fair.
If we feel like they're down that year, you have to have a committee to do the last 3. I guess you'd have to have a committee to do all 5 teams and rank their progress, right?
So I would go with the 5 conference champions. I would have a group of 5 team make it. I believe I would put some kind of stipulation just in case there was some kind of odd year where there was so much parity in the group of 5 that there were like a ton of 9-3 teams. I wouldn't want them in. They would have to reach a certain 11-1, 12-1 limit with 1 loss. No losses or 1 loss group of 5, something like that. And then, yeah, the other two teams would have to be, you would have to have a committee, and I would want metrics and evaluations made that were very stringent on the other teams. Certainly. So this past
Honestly,
season,
I think that would get the Pac-12 and like teams like that more involved. Like all of a sudden they would care like what team makes the playoff. You know?
absolutely.
I think that would help college football.
Oh,
yeah, you completely changed my mind right there. So I appreciate that.
so Prince, my because one of the other main callers here, I think it's MCD4 Sports. He calls in all the time, ranting and raving about a 16 playoff. And the issue I have with a 16 playoff is, so in the NFL there are bye weeks. There are teams that earned buys in the NFL playoffs, of course, but that was based on an objective system. So I did this with MCD4 because he calls in and he wants a 16 playoff. And I'm telling him that to have a 16 playoff and to have two teams have a bye is such a remarkably huge advantage for those two teams. It's not fair. And I've gone through every year and I've said, okay, who are going to be your two teams that get buys? And he throws two teams out. And then I tear his argument to shreds and let him know why those two teams didn't earn a bye any more than like two or three other teams did. Oh, that would be, you talk.
Pay for that.
Oh my goodness, that's a huge advantage.
Think about that. Yeah, there will be hell to pay. And then too, you're getting the right. It's just like baseball, man. Like some of the bottom seeds end up winning the whole thing. Even in college baseball, you look at the College World Series. A lot of times, 8 seed will go and take the whole thing. So I'm all about the best team winning, and sometimes the best team is not the best team all season. You know, sometimes it's all about getting hot at the right time, and no, I completely agree with that. So you changed my mind. Yeah, you definitely changed my mind right there.
Well,
I agree with you 100%.
I appreciate it, Prince. And the next time you have time to let me rant, I will explain why, not that Ohio State deserved to be selected in 2015, but that why the bounce of a ball can completely change a season for two different teams when you compare Alabama that season and Ohio State. How their resumes were identical, but just because of circumstances, it gave Alabama an entry into the playoff that they didn't have anything to do with. It was a game played in Arkansas, like that they didn't even participate in, versus what Ohio State went through, and why that the bounce of the ball determined the playoff spot.
Oh, as an ACC fan, trust me, I understand. SEC always gets the benefit of the doubt. Always.
Well, congratulations on your national championship. And I hope you continue to enjoy that.
I had nothing to do with it, but I appreciate it. I love Clemson, and we're blessed to have Dabo and a great program that makes men instead of just great players.
Yes, absolutely. I am very impressed with Dabo Swinney, and he has been able to continue to earn respect, but be a new school kind of coach. He's not in that old Nick Saban, Urban Meyer, where I walk into the living room and because I won national titles and I win 90% of my games, kids are just going to sign, where he has just built this culture that kids just want to go there and play, and he has mastered that. There's no question about that. And now
there's been bumper stickers for like 10 years now, especially around Clemson. Is and the saying goes is Clemson man needs no introduction, and I find that making good men is a lot more important than where we finish in football.
Absolutely.
I appreciate everything you do, Mark Rogers. Love your channel. I try to promote it as much as I can, man. I get as many people, as many friends. I got my Michigan friend following you now, so I try to do as much as I can. I appreciate everything you do, man. Trust me, everything you do is not going unnoticed.
Thank you, Prince.
So, We'll see you
That's
on
very
ESPN
nice.
soon.
If they've got enough money to throw at me, I guess.
Oh, they will.
I'm just
They will.
kidding. Thank you so much, Prince. I
Matter of
appreciate it.
time, brother.
Thank you. Thank
All
you
right,
so
take
much.
it easy, buddy.
Bye-bye. All right. It's 2:53 in the morning Eastern time. I am not taking any more calls. I have seen a number of people online say that they're going to call, and please save it for next time. Depending on what's going on tomorrow night, maybe I'll fire up the live stream. Of course, we've got a ton of spring games, and I'll finish up with this because last weekend, I don't know if you caught me. I'm sorry. Somebody's calling in, and please, it's 2:53. I'm not going to take any more calls. So this is my day tomorrow. I've got to do car shopping as I did all day today from about, it was like 9 in the morning until 7 at night, car shopping with my daughter. And I've got more of that tomorrow. So I don't know how much spring football I can take in. So, but I've got these spring games lined up here. And believe me, I'm going to get to as many, even from last weekend. Like I watched the Indiana game and I'm going to take that in. And I already watched it from last weekend and I got to spit my guts out on Indiana football. And we got all the spring games lined up. So I'll get to as many as I can if possible, but I'm not going to be here all day to watch them. I'll DVR and do the best I can to catch up with them. Schedule rankings are coming out and all sorts of crazy stuff. You can help, as Prince talked about, and I appreciate you sharing the video. Share the videos. Give me something in the super chat. Go to Patreon. Like the videos. You can do it a number of ways. Do the Amazon shopping using the links down below. There's a number of ways you can help us build the channel. So I appreciate all of you. And it just so happens that we had the most people on the line here in the last 5 minutes, of course, when we're shutting down. So we got a lot of late night people like myself who don't mind jumping online at almost 3 o'clock in the morning and checking out college football talk, even in April. All right, everyone. I've about had it. I'm going to be up early talking Penn State football, not live, but it's going to be recorded with SB Nation. So we are going to have some Penn State football talk available for you tomorrow, along with, again, as many spring games as I can get to after I do car shopping all day and watch some games and get some information online. Unfortunately, Miami is not televised or live streamed. So I would love to do. So this was really good last year that we had Alonzo1219 on after the Miami spring game. And we got like 11,000 views on that. And I wanted to do something similar to that. You know what, Deep Barat, he caught me here. You know what game I was thinking of? I totally screwed up. Blue Bonnet Bowl. Arkansas, Florida. Sometimes this disconnects. Sorry. I know almost every bowl score in history, but that disconnected there. Arkansas, Florida, 28-24, 1982 Blue Bonnet Bowl. My apologies on Texas, Florida. I mixed it up with the other Southwest Conference team at the time. Of course, that's going back into history before Arkansas SEC, Arkansas Southwest Conference with TCU and Baylor and Texas, etc. All right. Thank you, everyone. We appreciate the support. Great phone call from Prince and Deep Barat and everybody else. We'll see you soon. DeAndre, thanks so much for supporting the channel. And we will maybe see you tomorrow night. If not, I will certainly have college football content here delivered each and every day. See you soon.